Welcome, everyone, and thank you for joining us today for another Osteoporosis Canada Cook with OC webinar. Before we begin the webinar, Osteoporosis Canada acknowledges the land that our offices, located in Toronto, are on, is the traditional territory of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabeg, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples, and is now home to many diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis. We also acknowledge that Toronto is covered by Treaty 13 with the Mississaugas of the Credit. My name is Tracie Napoli, Director of Fund Development and MARCOM at Osteoporosis Canada, and I will be your cooking demo host. Now, today the webinar will provide general information about cooking and food knowledge, and of course, it's not intended as individualized health or nutrition advice, but if you have questions, please reach out to a registered dietitian or healthcare provider. We would love to hear from you. So if you have questions or comments related to the webinar, just click the Q&A icon at the bottom of your screen, or you can enter your comments in the chat. We will do our best to answer as many questions as we can during the webinar within the time available. Osteoporosis Canada's Cook with OC program works to provide you with strategies, new ideas, and develop recipes to help you get the nutrients needed for good health. Have you used the nutrient calculator yet? This online tool is to help inform you if you're getting enough calcium, protein, vitamin D, vitamin K, and magnesium, nutrients needed for bone health every day. Visit the Osteoporosis Canada website, or you can download the app onto your smartphone. You can use the QR code that's on the screen to do that, or if you go to the website, it'll have all the information there. So some simple tips. We're going to get some tips in before we start the cooking demo to help you cook at home. We don't want you to stress when cooking, especially during the holidays. And we have a few tips to help you as you plan. And planning is part of it. Do a meal plan to help you reduce food waste and stay on budget. Also, maybe a schedule of when you want to prep certain things, get things into the oven, etc. Check flyers and, for specials, for sale items that can be stored. And you don't have to cook and prepare everything from scratch. Whatever help you need to help you get, a great meal on the table, whatever you need to do, do it. Also, if you have time in advance, maybe try batch cooking for soup, sauces, meatballs, anything you can freeze. Can also break up the recipe by doing part of it the day before or earlier in the day. If you're tired, sit instead of standing. Whatever you need to do. And of course, I'm just going to go through a couple of things here. Ask for help and try a simpler variation of a classic recipe that you can enjoy so you don't have to deal with all the stress. And that's kind of what we're going to do today. And our featured recipe is a stuffed turkey breast. It is, sorry, I'm moving my screen around because we're all in front of my words here. Per serving, we've got 300 milligrams of calcium, 47 grams of protein, 475 micrograms of vitamin K, and 110 milligrams of magnesium per serving. You can find this on the Osteoporosis Canada website at osteoporosis.ca/recipes. I'll also pop it into the chat, the recipe link. It's now my pleasure to introduce our friend, Emily Richards, who is a professional home economist, freelance food writer, chef, and she's the author and co-author of 11 cookbooks. Emily also writes and develops recipes for print and online publications that include everyday cooking and healthy eating, and she can be found on TV, radio, and webcasts just like this one. Welcome, Emily. Hi, Emily.
Hello, Tracie. Hello, everybody. It's a beautiful Thursday afternoon.
It's a little chilly, depending on where you are, right?
I know, but the sun is shining, so I'm pretending like it's still summer.
I know. And we're so excited. We're going to do a bit of a holiday themed, festive themed meal that you can, or, for a weekend, whenever you're ready. But we're also, as we always do, we're going to give away an apron. So if you're on at the end of the cooking demo and I call your name, you will have one sent to you. We're not sure how right now, but we're going to get it to you because we're all having that challenge. Emily, let's talk about stuffed turkey breast. Take it away.
Yes, let's talk about that. So, for those of you that are in Canada, kind of a little bit of a celebration this weekend, Canadian Thanksgiving. But for some, it could just be, hey, let's get together and have a great weekend. So, on that note, Tracie, I know we haven't asked this question in a while, but maybe we can find out where everybody's joining us from today, because sometimes,
Yes.
some of us will be celebrating Thanksgiving this weekend, but maybe others you might be celebrating something else this weekend. That's what's great about this type of recipe because we tend to think of larger roasts and things like that for holidays, but perhaps you have a smaller household or, you are on your own and you want to cook something that you can tuck away and enjoy later, and you still want it to have kind of that holiday feel. And oftentimes when we look at proteins across the board, turkey tends to be that one that we think of during the holiday season. And I think what's fabulous about the holidays is that we think of certain flavors, certain maybe family members that are going to be joining you, and you kind of try to accommodate that. So this recipe actually fits the bill for many reasons. And there's going to be lots of substitutions, and we'll talk about all those things as we go through it. But the first and kind of most important thing is the stuffing. Am I right? Like, who doesn't love stuffing? And I'm going to tell you right now, I love stuffing outside. I like that crunchy, kind of like I love the crispy bits around the lasagna. That's how I like my stuffing. I like having the crunchy bits. So this is an actual stuffing. This is going into our turkey breast, and we're actually going to roll it. So I'm going to show you how nice and easy it is, but we do have to make that stuffing first, okay? So we are going to start off. I did do some chopping ahead of time because it makes things go a little bit smoother, and you won't have to be here all afternoon. Unless you want to come over and do dishes after, you're all more than welcome. I am going to start off with a little bit of oil in the pan. Now, if you love that little hint of butter flavor in your stuffings, by all means, you can use a little bit of butter here instead. But I was trying to keep things so that all the other flavors we're adding will shine through. So that's why I'm working with a neutral oil. So something that doesn't have a strong flavor, okay? And we're going to start off with kind of our base of a simple stuffing. I'm going to start off with a little bit of shallot. And if you don't have shallots, I love using shallots because they're small. So if you have a small household, it works out really well because you don't necessarily want to use those really big onions. So shallots are fabulous to have on hand. If you don't have shallots, you can very easily replace this with an onion, small onion, because again, we're working with a smaller amount. So this again will feed kind of 4 to 6 people quite nicely. And so smaller is better in this case. And then I'm going to add a little bit of celery. So I'm dicing everything kind of small because I want the stuffing to have this similar consistency throughout. And so if chopping becomes an issue for you, what you can do is just put all the vegetables in a food processor and give it a pulse, and then everything will be chopped up nicely, just the way you want it. Okay. And I'm also going to add a little bit of minced garlic. And if you don't want to mince it, you could always just use um, a microplane or a rasp or a grater to get it nice and fine. Okay. So I'm just going to keep this on low because we want to soften these vegetables, and they haven't figured out that aroma to come through the screens yet, but when they do, it's going to kind of hit you because it already smells fabulous. It is the season of apples. So I'm going to use a small apple in the stuffing. And I find that this is a great place. Stuffings are a wonderful place to add some fruit. Oftentimes you'll see things like dried fruits, apricots, cranberries in stuffings, but there's no reason why you can't use fresh fruit as well. So I'm going to use an apple, and again, we're kind of everything's on the small side here. So I have a small apple, and I'm going to leave the skin on. Adds a little bit of color, which is nice. And I'm going to just cut around it so that I get the core out. And then I'm just going to, again, dice it up, similar size to everything else that I'm using. Now, if you're thinking, if you already have the question, Emily, what apple do I use? Whatever apple you have in the crisper. If you have an apple that is, needing to be eaten or cooked with, If it has a little bit of a bruise, and you're not, it's not going to go into anybody's lunch because they don't want to eat it with the bruise. Perfect time to cook with it. Okay. So because we do want to soften it a little bit, you can, cut away from the bruised part and then just add it in. Now, if you don't have apples at home, let's say you have a pear, that would be beautiful in here too. Okay. That kind of nice little sweetness that comes from a pear or an apple this time of year is wonderful to add to a stuffing. Okay. So there's my diced up apple. And then I got to make sure my heat's back on here. There we go. And we're just going to soften the apple in there too. So the natural juice and the natural sweetness of the apple is going to come out and give us a wonderful flavor and just a nice little bit of color. If you have family members, in my family member with apple, you can use the pear, but then you can also, some of those other dried fruits that I talked about, cranberries, dried apricots would be lovely in here. Even some raisins would be nice. So you're getting that nice little hint of sweetness. If you wanted to be a little bit more traditional, this would be lovely with some carrots, zucchini. Okay, so you can kind of bulk up the vegetable portion a little bit too, which is really, really nice. So this process only takes about 3 or 5 minutes to soften because again, we've kept everything nice and small. So the next part is the fresh breadcrumbs. And I always love talking about fresh breadcrumbs because there's two schools of thought of breadcrumbs. Breadcrumbs that come in a can or a bag, or fresh bread that you can then make into breadcrumbs. So in our case, we are going to be using fresh or day old bread, so it still has moisture to make our breadcrumbs. So what I usually do is, I don't know if in your family it happens, but in my family it does. They leave the ends of the bread, the sliced bread in the bag. And you're like, no one wants to make a peanut butter sandwich with that. So I collect them, either freeze them, or what I do is I collect them, pop them in the food processor, and then I end up with these beautiful fresh breadcrumbs. Okay. So fresh breadcrumbs means that I put them in the food processor, I have them nice and crumbly, and then when I squeeze them, there's still moisture in there. And what that means is that that moisture is going to be in our stuffing and it's going to absorb any of the liquid that's in there and also work really nicely with our turkey breast. Okay. So that I've already done ahead. And you'll notice I have way more than I need. I just put it in the bread bag. Whatever I have left, I'm going to pop in the freezer, and I always have fresh breadcrumbs. Okay. So that's a great little way to kind of use up. And you can do that with hot dog buns, hamburger buns, any kind of bread that you have left over. I've done it with English muffins as well. And you can just pop them in the food processor to get a nice fine crumb. Okay. Great for meatballs and meatloaves as well. All right. So I have a little bit of a golden color on my apples, shallot, and celery. I'm also going to add some kale. So I'm going to get some greens in here for color, also for another vegetable. So I'm taking, the recipe calls for 3 cups in total. I'm taking a cup and I'm putting it right into my apple mixture so that it cooks down a little bit. So I know often you hear people talking about kale salads and the freshness of kale. So here we're going to be cooking with kale. So the texture is a little bit more tender. For some people, it's easier to digest when it's cooked. And in our case, it's going to keep that nice green color for when we go to slice the turkey. Okay. So I just want to add that and basically wilt it with the apples and our celery and shallot and garlic. Okay. Now, that was a big, long statement. Are there any questions so far? And let's find out where some of you guys are joining us from.
Hi. Okay, there. Yeah, technology today. All right, there we go. Here I am. Oh, we've got, let's share where people are from first. So Thunder Bay, Ontario, Fairview, Alberta. We've got Calgary, Regina, Saskatchewan, Belleville, Delta, BC, Boulder, Colorado. Hello.
Ooh,
Ottawa, Woodstock, Brampton, Hamilton, Victoria, a few from Victoria and from Vancouver, actually, Winnipeg, Manitoba, and Toronto. So we've got
that's awesome.
a few people. I hope I didn't miss anyone. We love it when everyone we have so many people from different parts of the country and beyond. And I actually, so what I wanted to do was, and you probably can't see because of my background, but I brought up my phone because we have these backgrounds, so only like you can see me, nothing else. But I wanted to talk about why we chose like kale for the recipe. Um, if you get on your nutrient calculator, which I just did right now, I popped in kale, and one serving of kale has 499 micrograms of vitamin K. Ton, huge amount. It also has 106 milligrams of calcium. So if some of you may be wondering, like, where is the calcium coming in from? Part of it is the kale, but also part of it is, which you haven't brought up yet, but I'm going to just quickly jump ahead a little bit, is the grated Parmesan cheese. Because the harder the cheese in general, the more calcium. So 1 tablespoon of grated Parmesan cheese has 177 milligrams of calcium. So a little goes a very long way. And often that's why you will find we add that in recipes just to bump up the calcium, right, Emily?
That's right, exactly. And if you kind of looked at all those numbers when Tracy put them up at the beginning of the webinar, and you're like, whoa, that's a lot of protein and
Yeah.
calcium. And it truly is. And sometimes when you, and as I'm going to add the breadcrumbs, which I talked about, and I'm going to add that Parmesan that Tracy just mentioned. And you're thinking, Emily, why would I add Parmesan? It's like,
Mm,
it's turkey, it's a stuffing, because Parmesan actually adds a lot of flavor. And you'll notice I'm not actually adding any salt to my
right.
stuffing. So it really brings out that kind of overall flavor, and you're getting the benefit of the calcium in it without a lot. I'm only using 3 tablespoons in here. And for those of you that are already questioning, Emily, I have gluten allergies and I have dairy
That was
allergies.
the question. There you go. That was the
It's almost like
question.
sometimes my head
We
is,
know.
the wheels are going. Oh, and I'm going to add some dried sage here too. I'm
I
going to
love
crumble
that.
that in because
If
I
you
think
don't like
that's
sage,
perfect.
I love sage. Don't put it in. Put in
No,
what you want.
you can use thyme, and you can use
Yeah,
fresh sage too. I still have fresh sage in the
me
garden.
too.
So instead of the 1 tablespoon of dried sage, I'd use about 3 tablespoons of fresh, just because of the freshness. You can add a little bit more. So breadcrumbs, you can use same process, the food processor with fresh breadcrumbs. You can use a gluten-free bread to do that. So gluten-free buns, sliced bread, anything like that. Pop it in the food processor and you have your fresh breadcrumbs. For the dairy element, there's a lot of non-dairy options now when it comes to cheeses, Parmesan included.
Yeah.
My godson, who can't have dairy, the Parmesan that I put in, ingredients when I'm making pasta and things like that for him is beautiful. Tastes delicious. Where it changes is the nutrients.
Right.
So that's where the change differs. But if you still want to enjoy kind of the flavor of what we're doing, then for sure you can totally do that. Okay.
And what we always say is it's like, this is just one meal. This is one strategy. This is one opportunity to get some good, high quality protein and other nutrients from like the kale, etc. So if you don't put the Parmesan in, yes, you're going to reduce the amount of calcium. That's fine. You just need to make it up in another way. I will just share a little tidbit, a tip on how for the breadcrumbs that I do. Sometimes at the end of certain seasons, like barbecue season, hamburger buns and hot dog buns are on sale. And I grab them and pop them in the freezer because they make great breadcrumbs when I need them. So that's just kind of a bit of a cost savings there. But let's look. That was the question. I'm just going to look really quick. Oh, Surrey, BC, Prince Edward County, Prince Edward Island. Oh, hello.
Oh, hello. Yes,
Hello,
indeed.
exactly. So we did just answer. I'm just checking here. Yes, we did answer that you can substitute for the cheese. Use the calcium, use the nutrient calculator. You can find, to add something else for the calcium bit, but you don't have to put it in. And it may adjust the flavor, so you may have to adjust seasoning. Right, Emily?
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Yep. And if you wanted to leave out, the dairy component totally, you do need to season this because it does kind
Yeah.
of fill the flavor in the turkey breast that we're using as well. So, and that's the stuff, like that's as quick as the stuffing goes. Now, did you want to add something else? You sure can. If you wanted to
Yeah.
chop up some pecans or walnuts or almonds, you could stir those in as well. If you wanted that dried fruit element in here, you could, add a little bit here too. You'll notice that it's not a lot. Again, and I always like to remind everyone, we're not stuffing a 12-pound turkey. This is just over a pound that we're dealing with. So we don't need a lot to get a big flavor. So that's why small skillet, small amount, and it's really, I think it carries over in flavor for the turkey breast that we're using, which is really nice.
Right. Very, very manageable if you're used to cooking for larger groups and now you're saying, I want to just make it for myself and someone else, or maybe just 3 or 4 people. This is great. It's also delicious as a leftover.
It
Um,
is 100%.
you know what? Actually, so Roy, he's behind the scenes. Why don't we do an overhead shot of the stuffing? Let's take a quick look, and I'm gonna jump off. I'll save the other questions for later.
There it is. So super, super easy. Okay. And then I've just set this aside now because we're going to let it cool. So when you're working at home and you're dealing with kind of fresh protein and vegetables, it's a nice idea to just get all the vegetables dealt with and then deal with your protein. So a little bit of, food safety in the kitchen, which I'm always a fan of. So what we're going to do is we're going to get our vegetable ready because guess what? We're cooking this all in one pan. Did I forget to mention that? This is a one pan dinner. Well, okay, we did this over here, but it's getting cooked all together. And so we are going to be getting some sweet potatoes ready. So these are just chopped sweet potatoes. You don't need a lot of sweet potatoes. You need about 2 to get a pound and a half. Unless you're getting really big sweet potatoes, you might only need 1, and peel them and cube them, okay, or chop them. If again, chopping, because sweet potatoes are kind of that harder vegetable, a little bit firmer to peel and cut than a potato for a lot of people, what you can do is go to the frozen aisle. Not for sweet potatoes because they're not everywhere, but squash. You can actually buy cubed or diced squash and use it in the recipe. So you'll get that beautiful color, the fall flavors, and you actually don't have to cook it as long either. So but I went with sweet potatoes because it takes about the same length of time to cook with the turkey. Okay. You could do a mix if you wanted to. You could do sweet potatoes and parsnips or carrots and parsnips. So you could really kind of change up the vegetables as to what you would like. Now, squash, this is my squash kind of lurking over here. This is a spaghetti squash. So it wouldn't necessarily be the right squash for this, but you could use butternut, you could use acorn, kabocha would be really nice too. So there's lots of squash options. That you can use. Buttercup are beautiful too. So if you kind of have, an overabundance of squash and you don't feel like making soup, this is a great substitute for the sweet potatoes. And we're not going to dress the sweet potatoes too much because we're going to be adding some more Parmesan to them later. But we are going to add some dried thyme. So if you don't want to use the sage in the stuffing, you could actually use some thyme instead. And you can use the same amount. I often interchange thyme and sage, but for my East Coast fans, savory would be beautiful in this dish too. And I love, if you can get your hands on fresh or dried savory, that's beautiful with this dish too. Okay. And then I am going to season the sweet potatoes with a little bit of salt and pepper here too. Okay. Now, in order to get this kind of little bit golden and delicious, we're going to add a couple tablespoons of oil to this too. So if you wanted to, again, if you were using butter for the stuffing, you could totally melt some butter and do the same thing. But in this case, I'm just going to stick with the oil, and then I'm going to toss everything together in here. And then once we have our vegetables and stuffing kind of ready to go, I'm going to bring out the turkey because that's where we're going to butterfly it and stuff it. So I already have my baking sheet. So you, again, and you don't need a deep roasting pan. This is just my baking sheet with some parchment paper. And on half of it, my sweet potatoes are going to go on here. Okay. I'm going to give my hands a wash, and then we're going to get our turkey breast going. So as I mentioned, the turkey breast, it's a boneless, skinless turkey breast, okay? And it's about 600 grams. So that's a little bit over a pound. And you can find them in the grocery store year round. So that's why this is a great recipe for, a family Sunday dinner, or if you just want to have something a little different, it's a great option. So here is my boneless, skinless turkey breast that I'm going to use. Okay. I'm going to put it on my cutting board here. And I flipped it over because I want to show you, much like chicken breast, they have a tenderloin. So it's usually the size of a chicken breast. This is the tenderloin right here of the turkey breast. So I'm going to fold it over, and that actually has already started me butterflying the turkey breast. So here you can see this is a little bit thicker. So this is where I want to open up the turkey breast a bit more, because that's where we want to put all of our stuffing. So I just have my sharp chef's knife. Make sure your knife is sharp if you're going to do this at home, because it does make it a little bit easier to kind of work through the protein. So I'm just going to kind of go through and butterfly my thicker part here and just open it up with my hand and kind of flatten it. Now, if this side wasn't even, you could do the same thing. So I would just kind of hold my knife and then open it up. The saying is always opening it up like a book, right? So that's simply all I did, is I cut it and open it, but it's still all together in one piece, because this is where all of our stuffing is going to go. Now, if it's a little bit uneven, let's say this is a bit thicker here, I'm just going to use, you can use plastic wrap or parchment paper, and I'm just going to use my meat mallet, okay, and pound it so that it's a little bit more even. So many people love this process, even if it's not necessary, because if you've had a bad day, this is always a nice relaxation method in the kitchen. Okay. So I'm just going to make sure that this is all even. And then I'm going to lift that up. There we are. Okay. So I have a nice even turkey breast. And then I'm going to season my turkey breast with a little bit of salt and pepper on the inside, just like that. And then I'm going to put my stuffing down. So when you pick up your stuffing and you think, well, Emily, this isn't really like, it doesn't, stick together. It's not really meant to stick together, because I want you to be able to spread it out so that it coats the whole turkey breast here. And remember, as the turkey breast roasts, juice is going to come out of it, and that's going to be absorbed by those breadcrumbs. So we're going to have that delicious flavor through and through. Okay. So I'm basically pushing it down onto my turkey breast. Now, let's talk about if you don't want to do the butterflying portion, because perhaps you're going to a butcher and you're not really a fan of butterflying your turkey breast. That's okay. Just ask the butcher to butterfly it for you. And if it's a larger turkey breast, so let's say it's something closer to 2 pounds because it's been freshly cut off the turkey itself, then you could double this and make a larger portion. Okay. Where that changes things is the length of time that it cooks. And we're going to talk about that in a moment, because I also want you to reduce the temperature of the oven if it's a larger piece of turkey. Okay. So here, what we're going to do is we're just going to start on one end. You can start on whichever end you'd like, and we're just going to roll this up. Okay. Just like that. Oh, taking the cutting board with me. There we go. Okay. And there's our cute little turkey roast. And then anything that falls out, this rule applies for anything. You just stuff it back in because you don't want to miss out on any of that wonderful stuffing. Okay. Now, if you don't have any kitchen string, you can use a skewer to kind of just keep it together. But I did cut some kitchen twine. Okay. So cut it large enough so that it goes underneath, and I'm just going to kind of slide it under. And I'm going to stay close to one end. This doesn't have to be anything fancy, because remember, we're going to be cutting this off after. So not to worry. Okay, there's one. And then I'm going to do one on the other end here. And then I do like to kind of sometimes, if depending on the length here, I like to secure the center as well. So I'm going to put that third piece of kitchen twine on there. Okay. What are we thinking, Tracie? Do we have any questions about the butterflying of the turkey breast at all?
I don't think we have any about the butterflying, but I just want to kind of point out, like, if you've watched Emily do this, she's touching poultry. She's had everything in her, you know, easy access, pre-cut string so that, you're not touching like kind of everything. Because it's turkey. So and and the string was all pre-cut and stuff like that. So no, we did have somebody though. So it's interesting. We're going to talk about temperature. The first question we actually got right when we started was like, how do you keep it moist? Have we all cooked turkey or chicken and it's just as dry as can be? Um, and I mean, maybe it's just me who's done that. But I think, like, I mean, you do all this work, you want something delicious, and especially if you're making the turkey breast or the chicken breast, because you can do this with chicken, right, Emily?
You could, you just need to do multiple, right?
Yeah.
Because they're smaller. So
Yes.
you'll need a few chicken breasts to fill.
Kind of like
So
you're putting them side by side and you pound them out and then you roll them all together.
you
Right?
can, or you can do them individually too. So
Oh,
you
that's
have
a
smaller
great
ones
idea.
for sure. And then everybody gets their own, right? Which
Yes.
sometimes that's what people like. They like their own little package.
People don't
I'm
want to
just gonna
share. Yeah.
I'm just gonna check my oven down here. I'm not far, guys. I'm just
Because Emily has already, with the magic of what we're doing,
I wasn't gonna make you wait for half an
I
hour.
know
That's
she's already
crazy.
she's already
So
popped it in.
So I am going to check the temperature. This is kind of the big one, and I promise if it's ready, I'll bring it up. But I'm going to check. I have a low oven down here, so I'm still here. I haven't gone far. I'm just making sure that the temperature of
And you
the
know what? I'm
turkey
going to
is
talk when you
good.
say temperature. A meat thermometer is a really handy tool. So that you're not cutting into your roasts or turkey or whatever meat that you're cooking. Um, and it really helps with the cooking process. Emily, what
Yes.
do you think about that?
I've given it 4 more minutes.
So Emily I'm going to ask the question again. So
Oh, did you ask me a
I said
question?
it, yeah.
Sorry.
I
I was
was
so focused on
I
checking
know
the
you were. I know
temperature
you
of
were.
the.
So I was just gonna say, I was just saying like how important it is to have a meat thermometer and how useful
Oh,
it is.
100%. No matter what protein you're cooking, the success of it is having a thermometer. And the thermometer that I'm using, I'll bring it over here to show you. It's a digital thermometer, so it's an instant read thermometer.
Yes.
You're putting it into the center of whatever roast that you're cooking, and it's going to give you the temperature right away. So my kitchen's a little warm right now. It's 78 degrees in here, but that's because I'm right in front of the oven, and the warm sun is coming in. So make sure that your thermometer is working because that's really important. And um, it doesn't have to be digital, but most recently digital thermometers seem to be more reliant, or you can rely on them a little bit more than the dial. So some people have, and I have done this in the past, have had multiple thermometers. You're kind of putting them in to make sure that, oh my gosh, is this roast done? The key is to take the temperature of the roast and make sure that it is cooked. And even if it's, let's say, about 5 degrees away from being the temperature. So in our case, we're looking at about 165. So even if I take it out at about 160, it has to rest. And with anything, as you all know, when it comes out of the oven, it still is going to be cooking. So that temperature will be reached usually within about 5 degrees. So that helps guarantee you of that nice, tender, juicy roast. So in our case, our turkey breast that we're making. Okay. So we're also cooking this at a higher temperature. So if you take a look at the recipe and you think, oh my gosh, Emily, did you do this right? It's 425 degrees. It's 425 degrees because this is all white meat and I want to cook it. And remember, we put the stuffing in there to help protect and give us some juiciness, but I also want these to be golden brown and delicious. So that higher temperature will help us create both. Now, if you know that your oven runs hot, I would suggest you bump it down to 400 degrees so that this doesn't get too dark. Or you can actually cut these a little bit larger so that it takes a little bit longer for them to cook through, okay? So anywhere between 400 and 425 is going to give you that really nice kind of golden brown color for the sweet potatoes and help the turkey reach the temperature so that it ends up being nice and tender inside. So the last thing I want to do for this turkey breast before it goes into the oven is drizzle it with our last tablespoon of oil. Okay, so just a little bit of oil on the outside. And then a little bit of salt and pepper. Okay. If you wanted to put a little bit more seasoning here, you totally could. So if you wanted a little bit more of that dried sage or fresh sage on top, or a little bit of parsley for color, you could do that as well. Okay. So that's our seasoning. Our sweet potatoes, remember, we seasoned those all up. And then this goes into the oven. I would start checking it at about the half-hour mark. Now, if your turkey breast is a little bit larger and you have two smaller sheet pans, you can put them in separately so that you can leave your turkey in and you can take your sweet potatoes out. So that's an option. The other option is to just put this into a different casserole dish or put your turkey in a casserole dish so that if you know that I'm not sure that this is going to work, and that's okay. You can put it in two different pans. Because these are both small, they'll fit in the same rack in the oven, which is fabulous, okay? So that's my timer. And I'm just gonna grab another cutting board here because we're not done with the sweet potatoes. So I'm gonna take this turkey out. Oh, and you know what I wanted to tell you? I almost forgot. See how I wrapped that turkey? See how this is right now? Let's say you're just exhausted and you're done. Wrap this up, pop it in the refrigerator, and cook it tomorrow. It's totally fine. Okay. So if you've done all your work today and your guests are coming tomorrow, this turkey will wait for you in the refrigerator so that when you're ready to bake it, roast it the next day, you can do that. Okay. So what I'm going to do is take off our turkey and let it rest here. See how it's got some nice color on there, golden brown. Our sweet potatoes also have that nice golden brown color, but we're not done with them because we want to add some more brightness and flavor to them. So I'm going to take, remember I said there's 3 cups in this recipe? I'm going to take the last 2 cups of kale and add that. And remember that Parmesan cheese? It was divided. The rest of it is going on here too. If you have not had Parmesan cheese on your potatoes, you don't know what you're missing. It is so delicious. I am grateful for my Aunt Josephine who introduced me to Parmesan cheese on potatoes. And now I can borrow the whole baking sheet here because we've taken the turkey off. Did I lose anything there? It just adds a really, really nice flavor. It kind of melts a little bit on the potatoes and the kale will crisp up a little bit. So it's a really, really nice change to just having a plain old vegetable. Okay. And I'm going to pop this, just put this back into that 425 oven for about 5 minutes. Okay. Which gives your turkey time to rest. This is something that, again, for any roast, just let it rest. If you want, you can tent this with foil. It's also a good way to keep kind of like, little fingers that are, and they're not always kids, by the way, they're adults that come in and they're like, oh, can I taste that? And they start kind of picking away at the roast because they just want to taste it. So tenting it with foil is kind of the universal sign, like, don't touch it. It's resting. So you could definitely do that. Okay. Any questions while our turkey's
Oh, yes,
resting?
we do. I'm pulling them
Okay.
up as you kept going. So, okay, I'm going to start at the top here. So, earlier on, actually, Gina asked, so is there an alternative for garlic? So, if you're someone who does not like or cannot consume garlic, what leave it out, or what else would you pop in there?
So one of the things that a lot of people over time have compared to kind of that garlic flavor is shallots, that it has kind of that combination of onion and garlic. However, if you've not had garlic because you can't eat it, you're not going to miss it. It's not something that you're going to want. So in this case, the shallot if you're okay with shallots, just use the shallot and it'll be fabulous. Some people that can't have the fresh garlic can have garlic powder or dried garlic. It's just because of the compounds, because it's dried or ground, that it changes the qualities of the garlic. So you could always use a little bit of that. But in this recipe, I used 1 clove. So it's not an ingredient that will make or break it. So you could totally leave it out for sure.
Okay, great. And hello, Judith from Chilliwack. She wanted to say hello. A couple of questions. So, is kitchen twine specifically found in the baking aisle? I really think that depends on where you're shopping, because not every place has it, I think. What do you think, Emily?
That is true. So what you want to look for in some grocery stores, like I'll give you an example. My Food Basics has like at the end aisles has all these little like weird bits of things that you would think just put
Yeah.
them in an aisle and then I'd be able to find them. So they have skewers at the end aisle. They have kitchen twine at the end aisle. So there's little kind of odds and ends like that that you will find in a grocery store sometimes. The larger grocery stores tend to kind of bring all that together in an aisle. You can also go to the hardware store and ask for kitchen twine or butcher twine because they will have it. If you are going to a butcher, you can also ask there. Say, can I, get you only need about an arm's length, and they'll usually happily give it to you. Some butchers still actually tie their packaging with that butcher twine. So you could use, save that and use that. The one thing I don't want you to use is raffia. I have seen many
Oh my
roasts
gosh. Don't
in
do that.
and actually in
Or
photos, like
thread.
in
Don't don't do
in,
that.
in professional food photos, I have
Yeah.
actually seen raffia being
No,
used. Don't use that. There
no.
is also brown twine, but it's not always food safe. So overall, stick with your main, hardware store or a grocery store or a culinary shop. So if you are, going to a cookware shop, sometimes they will have those kind of odds and ends as well, because it is sometimes difficult to find.
Well, and I'll tell you, I bought one. I bought a whole roll and I bought it like 10 years ago. So you're good if you invest in it, because if you only make, something like this once or twice a year, there you go. I just keep
It
it.
comes in it comes in various sizes.
Exactly. And well, Emily is definitely doing more cooking than I am. So perfect. And my butcher did actually just give me some when I went to buy a roast. He just kind of cut it in there and said, "Here you go." So, ask if you're going to a butcher. Somebody also asked about poultry seasoning instead of sage.
Oh yeah.
Again, I think it's really your taste. Like herb de Provence. Like there's all kinds of seasonings out there, and it's really what you enjoy, what you
It
like.
is 100%. Yeah. So any of those combination seasonings would work. Italian seasoning or de Provence, like Tracy said, any of those flavors, because they do have components. Some of them have sage, some of them don't. But it's just that herbaceousness. I
Yeah,
love that word. I actually don't know if it's a word, but
it is.
herbaceousness of
Yes, it
of
is.
those ingredients are fabulous because I think they work really well with all our other ingredients that we're using. And so, and if all you have is oregano would work
Yeah.
too. So don't think it has to kind of be outside of the box. It could just be, if you have a simple, dried herb kit, if you will, in your kitchen, you can do that. Or you can change it up completely because you know what? This would be great with some curry powder in it too.
There
So,
you
you could go to the other side and
go.
be a little bit more exotic and creative as well.
Absolutely. It's really your kitchen, your flavors, whatever you're happy, cooking up and serving. I'm just looking here. So somebody did ask if instead of stuffing it, so let's say you just wanted to get an actual turkey breast and roast it, can you use the stuffing as a side dish? And could you add like some dried fruit? And I will just say for dried fruit, if you get on the nutrient calculator, you'll see that dried figs and dried dates do actually have some calcium in there. So that's just a little FYI. But I think Emily, after she shows us the yummy kale and sweet potatoes, um, can kind of share how maybe you can use the stuffing as a side dish.
Yes. So, um, There's our kale and sweet potatoes, by the way.
Yeah.
The kale has gotten some more golden brown color on it as well. So it's going to have that little bit of crispiness, kind of like a kale chip, if you will. And we have that nice kind of roasted, um, a little bit of crunch on the sweet potatoes too, because we've let them get deep and golden. So when it comes to the stuffing, if you want to cook it separately, first of all, the turkey breast, if you're going to just roast it on its own, it's much thinner than this. So it actually only takes about 20 minutes. So it's way faster, first of all. And if you want to do the stuffing, even do it out of the skillet, what I would do is add a little bit more moisture to it because it doesn't have enough moisture. I'm dependent on the moisture coming from the turkey when we roast it. So you could add something like a little bit of vegetable broth to it, or if you wanted to add a little bit of melted butter in there too, that would be lovely. And then you could even pop that in a small casserole dish and roast it so that you get, remember those crispy bits I was telling you about? It'll get nice and golden, also because of that little bit of Parmesan cheese, right? Because we did add some of that in there too. So it'll get nice and golden. So you could do that as an option. And then same thing when you're testing your turkey breast, if you're just roasting it on its own, make sure you check the thickest part, which is kind of what I showed you when I was butterflying it, and make sure that's where you're taking the temperature from, because that thinner end, it's thicker on one part, just like a chicken breast. So you want to check the thicker part to make sure that it's cooked through before you start slicing it.
That is an excellent tip. I'm going to ask you one more question and then we're going to see if this is ready to be sliced. So I have a question on a convection oven.
Oh,
So
okay.
if you're cooking convection, where should you cook this? In the middle, at the bottom? Does it matter? Does the regular oven, should you be cooking it there? Can you do either? What changes?
Okay. So I have a regular oven. I don't have convection. So the 425 is a regular oven temperature. Okay. If you are using convection, you can use convection. Just start checking whatever you're roasting a little bit sooner, because the fan in the back of the oven is blowing air all around evenly. And so what that means is that it tends to cook a little bit quicker. Okay. Now, the other option you can do is leave the amount of time the same and drop the temperature in the convection oven a little, like by about 25 degrees. By the way, did I tell you you could do this in the air fryer? You can, except you're not going to cook it at 425 degrees. You're going to cook it at 350 degrees because they're small and compact. The air is even hotter in there. So at 350, you're gonna still cook it usually about 20 to 30 minutes still. And it doesn't always work unless you have the side-by-side air fryers to cook the vegetables as well at the same time. So I thought I'd throw that in there too. So for the convection oven, it middle rack is totally fine. You don't really, the only time I'm cooking on the bottom is if I have lots of things in the oven, I'm using all the racks, or if I'm baking pie or pastry, because I want to make sure that the bottom's getting cooked evenly. Or if it's a bread that I want to have a little extra crispy or crunchy on the outside, I tend to cook it on the bottom. But a general rule that I follow is that everything's kind of in the middle. Unless you have to do, I'll use cookies as an example. If you have 2 sheets of cookies going in, you want to do the bottom and top third and make sure you switch them halfway through. Okay. Because that again helps with the air movement in your oven. If you're baking on convection, that fan is supposed to cook evenly so that you can fill all your racks. All company ovens are different. So sometimes that works and sometimes it doesn't. So it's sometimes a hit or miss, to be honest with you. But you all know your oven best. I love my oven. I have like a larger bottom oven and then like a small oven on top. So for holidays and stuff, it's fabulous because I can always put the roasts in the bottom and all the side dishes on the top. So it's come in very, very handy for me. Do they cook the same? No, they don't. One cooks a little bit hotter than the other, but I've gotten to know that over the years. And so I adjust kind of accordingly. Okay. So when you're looking at the recipes, and if you know, as I said, if you know your oven is running hot, or there's a hot spot in the oven, maybe that's not where you want to tuck the most delicate meringue cookies because they'll crisp up too much and perhaps not cook through properly. Okay, so hopefully that helps. Okay, I'm going to slice this. And so I've let it rest for a bit. I got my carving knife here. And this is not something you want to slice into like teeny tiny little thin slices. Okay. But I want to make sure that I show you that that stuffing in there. I don't know if you can see that. That's just the end of it. I'm going to say this is about 1 inch that I'm cutting here. Whoops. I had it break open a little bit there. Okay. But if I show you inside here, I don't know if you can tell how juicy that is, but take a look at that. That's our stuffing in there. So there's the, kale and our little bit of breadcrumbs, but it retains its color nicely. That's kind of what I like about it. So this, I would say kind of 2 slices is a nice serving for everybody. So I'm going to put, that's, you know what, here's my other little trick. So see how this one kind of broke apart a little bit? Put that one on the bottom and then cover it with the nicer slice. And no one will ever know the difference. And then I'm going to take some of our veggies here and put them on the plate alongside. Okay. Just like that. And this is delicious. If you are a cranberry sauce lover like I am, a nice dollop of cranberry sauce alongside would be great. But this is also good with, on its own. But if you like chutneys or anything like that, like a mango chutney would be great with this too, with the flavors, would be absolutely delicious. I do have some, I didn't make any cranberry sauce because apparently at my house, they don't like it homemade. So I'll scoop some cranberry sauce alongside here too, just like that. Okay. If you wanted to make gravy, you totally could, if that's something that's part of your family tradition and you want to, this might be shaking it up already by making something this different. So maybe you want to keep the gravy in there to help people out. But to me, this is a great little, you know, weekend meal for family and friends.
That just looks delicious and beautiful. It's very colorful and festive. It totally screams Thanksgiving and all the holiday feels and yumminess. So, um, Emily, you know what you have to do for us now?
I do.
You
I'm gonna move
do.
that. I gotta move that turkey
I know.
over so
She's
that I
going
can
to
get it
sacrifice
closer.
and take the taste that we cannot have. She's
And
going
there's
to,
another roast in the oven, so if anyone's nearby and they
oh
want to
my
come by.
gosh. It'll take me an hour and a half, but I'm coming to see you. No. We once forgot to have Emily taste, and I got emails from people saying she didn't try the recipe. So I make sure now that we always do that. And as she does that, I mean, and just I know she was joking about the cranberry sauce, maybe she wasn't, but you don't have to make everything from scratch. If that you is good and it makes your life easier, go right ahead. I actually got two more questions
Okay.
as you enjoy your turkey dinner there. Yeah. So somebody actually, it was a really good question. Can you use frozen kale? And if you do, how would it change?
So I think the frozen kale would work in the stuffing because
Yeah,
you have to saute it anyway and it's going to get um, softened. I think it might get a little soggy
yeah,
adding it to the oven. So what I would do instead is just treat it separately. If you have a small skillet and saute it, that's where you can add a little bit of garlic if you want or hot pepper flakes, jazz it up. It'll thaw beautifully, but then that's where you're going to get a little bit of crispness more than here because I'm only adding it the last 5 minutes. What'll happen with frozen kale is it just kind of leach out some water and it might be
yeah.
a little bit rubbery. You could add it earlier, but that will also add water to our sweet potatoes and you're not going to get that little bit of crunch. And that Parmesan really does help bring out the crunch because for those of you that have made sweet potato fries at home and you're like, there's no crunch. The kale and the Parmesan actually helps kind of create that crunch in your mouth, which is a nice textural difference to the tender turkey, which is nice. And by the way, this turkey cold, so you can make this roast. You don't have to eat it tonight. let it cool, put it in the fridge, and then slice it thin. It's absolutely delicious in sandwiches the next day. Or if you're making, a brunch and you want to have some cold meats to serve with some other items, this is a great one to slice up and serve that way too.
And also, it's great to freeze if you slice it. You could portion it out and you could just, freeze in two slices or one slice or whatever it is you want to enjoy later so that you've done all this work. And, if you're going to have leftovers that you don't want to eat the next day, freeze it and enjoy it, a couple weeks from now.
That's right, exactly.
Yeah, we love to freeze stuff. Okay, last question, interesting question. So, if you don't want to use kale, and again, we use kale in a few of our recipes because of the vitamin K and the calcium.
Hmm.
So, if you want to swap it out, and I'm not sure, I think you can, like, I'm going to
Yep.
throw it out there, spinach or
Hmm.
Swiss chard. It won't, you're not going to have the same nutritional breakdown.
Hmm.
That's okay. It's got other good stuff in there. But I don't know from a cooking perspective if you can treat it exactly the same way.
So in the stuffing, you can pretty much use any green you want.
Okay, good
So
to
the
know.
greens that you mentioned, Tracy, spinach, Swiss chard, rapini, I would use in here too, which is one of my
Rapini,
favorites.
rapini is a good idea. Yep.
Yep. So you could use any of those collards. I would cut them up really small though, so that because again, it doesn't cook a lot in that bread stuffing. So if it's a tougher green, you could always blanch it first and then
Idea.
cook it into your stuffing. Where it changes is this last little bit. So the spinach would definitely wilt. The tender greens of Swiss chard or even bok choy would wilt here as well. Some of those tougher greens like collards or rapini, 5 minutes isn't enough. So you'd have to, again, much like we talked about the frozen kale, cooking it separately. And there's no reason why you can't add it in the last minute and, serve it
Just mix it
together in a bowl.
together.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. It would be fabulous.
You know what? How about you guys try it and let us know. If you
Hmm.
make it and you're like, I loved it with collards or spinach, and this is what I did, please let us know. You can share it on the social post, you can email us, let us know. We love to hear from you, and we do get a lot of you who
Hmm.
share when you do make a recipe, so we know when you like something.
You know what? I just thought, Tracy,
Tell me.
coleslaw mix would be great too
Yes,
in the
yes,
stuffing, right? Because if you don't have to chop anything, you
yes.
just scoop it out of the bag and add it and cook it, let it wilt.
Yep.
And then at the end, you could do the same thing. Add it in here in the last few minutes. It'll wilt a little bit. I love cabbage. I use coleslaw mix for so much because it's so handy because you don't have to chop anything and it's colorful.
Well, the other thing is, if you're one or two people, a cabbage is quite large.
Hmm.
And it could take a very long time to eat all of that. And some people like cabbage, but not that much. So if you can get the mix that's pre-shredded, it's the perfect amount to use. And again, if it's on special, just grab it. And then you're going to get probably sometimes carrots, sometimes kale is in that mix.
Hmm.
It depends which
Yep.
mix you get. So that's a great, we do like our little hacks that we have for things like that. Well, listen, we're out of questions. We're almost out of time. Um, we want to thank you, Emily, for showing us how to make this delicious and beautiful dish. I mean, we eat with our eyes as well. I am going to just congratulate our apron winner, Andrea Jaburi from Calgary, Alberta. Congratulations. Yay. I'll email you and we'll work on getting you that apron shipped to you. I'm just gonna finish off. I want to share some information with everyone. Let's just finish off here. So we have another cooking demo with Emily with our partners at Get Cracking, and it's a Portuguese inspired egg sandwich. It's Thursday, October 30th. If you visit our homepage or osteoporosis.ca/event, you can register. We'll also be sharing this in a newsletter that's coming out in the next day or so. We have lots happening. So if you're in Toronto, Great Toronto area, we are going to be at the National Menopause Show the weekend of the 18th and 19th. Please come see our exhibit and say hello. In November, we're going to have a bone building treatments webinar. We're also in Sudbury. We have two events, one in English and one in French. We're going to be having an orthopedic surgeon and a physiotherapist speak about, how to manage after surgery, after a fracture, more details to come on that. And then Emily and I are back for a holiday cooking demo. We want to have another, festive themed recipe for you. We're going to have some fun. That's going to be actually the second week of December. And in January, a menopause and bone health webinar. So there is lots. There's even more, but I couldn't fit it on the screen. So make sure that you check your email because there's going to be more details to come. And for some of what we've already done, we actually had a webinar yesterday on sarcopenia, very well attended. You can watch the OC replay. In addition to the supplements and bone health webinar, it's on the page, the web page, on the website, and our podcasts. So all kinds of topics on bone health and osteoporosis. And lastly, if you have sent us a donation, and you haven't received a tax receipt yet due to the Canada Post service disruption, please know that will take some time. If you are looking at making a donation, you can do so very securely, very easily by visiting our website, and then you will get a tax receipt emailed directly to you. But if you prefer, you can call our office and we will be happy to take your information over the phone. We are very thankful for everyone, and we're very thankful for the donations we get to help us provide programming and research and advocacy and support for people on their bone health, muscle health, and on osteoporosis. So we thank you. We wish you a very happy Thanksgiving, happy cooking. Thank you, Roy, who's behind doing all the tech stuff. Emily, thank you for another wonderful recipe and for a delicious cooking demo. And to all of you, we wish you well. We wish you a beautiful weekend, and we will see you soon. Be sure to subscribe to the newsletter. See you later, everyone. Happy cooking. Happy
Thanks,
Thanksgiving.
thanks, Tracie. Thanks, everybody.
Take care.